I wasn't expecting a fight when I got home from my shift at the hospital. All I wanted was to surprise Sarah by helping her with the new vegetable garden. But the bright orange violation notice on our front door changed everything. My hands clenched as I read the words "immediate action required" stamped across the top in bold, black letters. The fine print detailed an alleged violation for unapproved landscaping modifications detected in backyard space. Immediate removal is required. Sarah had spent weeks designing the garden according to the HOA guidelines. Raised beds, proper drainage, aesthetically pleasing. We even checked twice before starting. At the bottom of the notice, the signature was unmistakable: Barbara Thompson, HOA president. I'd heard the stories about Barbara. She had moved in 6 months ago and somehow secured the HOA presidency within weeks. Since then, she'd been tightening her grip over our quiet suburban community like a dictator with a clipboard. But the last line of the notice made my stomach turn. Security will conduct regular inspections to ensure compliance. Since when did our peaceful neighborhood need security inspections for a vegetable garden? I stepped inside and found Sarah in the kitchen, still humming as she rinsed her hands, soil fresh under her fingernails. Her smile faded when I handed her the notice. "But we checked the HOA guidelines," she said, scrolling through the community website on her tablet. "Right here, Article 7, vegetable gardens permitted in backyard spaces with proper drainage." She highlighted the section, her environmental lawyer instincts kicking in. We did everything right. What is Barbara trying to pull? The doorbell rang. We both jumped. Through the peephole, Barbara Thompson stood on our porch, tapping her foot impatiently. She wore a crisp white pantsuit that probably cost more than my monthly salary, a tablet clutched in her manicured hands like a weapon. The war had begun. I was drinking my morning coffee when I first spotted them. 2 men in black polo shirts with HOA security printed on the back, taking pictures of our vegetable garden. Their movements weren't like regular HOA inspectors. Too aggressive. Too calculated. Then I saw their tactical belts, loaded with what looked like real police gear. I stepped onto the back porch, forcing my voice to remain calm. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" The taller one turned, his hand resting on a police-issued taser. His partner continued photographing our tomato plants like they were evidence at a crime scene. "We have police authority within this community," the tall one announced, flashing a badge that disappeared too quickly for me to read. "We're documenting ongoing violations under HOA Code 47B. I pulled out my phone and started recording. They both stiffened. "I'd like to see your credentials and legal documentation of this police authority," I said, channeling my father's years of experience as chief of police. The shorter one took a step forward, but his partner stopped him. Before I could push further, Barbara appeared as if she had been waiting for her grand entrance. She marched across our lawn, waving another violation notice. "These officers don't answer to residents," she declared, her voice smug. "They report directly to the HOA executive board." "Which means they report to me." I noticed our neighbor, Mrs. Patel, peeking through her curtains. When our eyes met, she quickly disappeared. But not before I saw the fear on her face. Something was very, very wrong. That evening, I reviewed the footage I had taken on my phone. I hadn't caught it in the moment, but now, watching frame by frame, I saw the details I missed. The officers had no name tags. Their badges didn't match any local law enforcement design. The positioning of their gear was off, like props in a movie, rather than real police equipment. Something wasn't right. Sarah walked into the room just as I was emailing the state licensing board. "Why were there men with guns taking pictures of our garden?" she asked, arms crossed. I turned my laptop toward her. "Because they aren't real police." Her face went pale as she watched the slowed-down footage. "That's not a standard security badge. And that tactical gear? I used to work for a security firm. They're wearing it all wrong." Through the window, we watched as the so-called officers moved down the street, stopping at specific homes. Not all of them. Only the homes of residents who had spoken up at recent HOA meetings. The Rodriguezes had complained about noise discrimination. The Smiths had questioned the new security fee on their HOA bill. I grabbed my phone and created a private group chat with trusted neighbors. Within minutes, messages poured in. The security team had entered backyards without permission. They had taken photos of children playing. They had even threatened to detain someone for washing their car in their own driveway. Then, my phone buzzed with a text from Barbara. "Your continued surveillance of our security team is a violation of HOA policy. Expect enforcement action tomorrow." Sarah read the text over my shoulder, her grip tightening on my arm. "She's scared," I whispered. "We just backed her into a corner." Sarah exhaled sharply. "Yeah, but a scared dictator? That's when they're the most dangerous." And she was right. Because that night, our security cameras caught them again. This time, they weren't just taking pictures. They were cutting the lock to our backyard gate. The footage wasn't grainy. It wasn't some shadowy blur that could be excused as routine patrol. No, it was clear as day. The so-called HOA security had cut through the lock on our backyard gate, stepping inside as if they owned the place. One of them scanned the area with a flashlight, while the other pointed a camera at Sarah's vegetable beds, snapping pictures. Then, the taller one pulled something from his pocket, a spray can. My heart pounded. No way. He crouched by the tomato plants and started spraying something on the soil. Pause it, Sarah whispered, gripping my arm. I froze the frame and zoomed in. The can had a label. It was faint, but still legible. Industrial herbicide, not for residential use. Sarah covered her mouth. They're trying to kill the garden. I clenched my jaw. No. They're trying to build a case. They'll blame us for it, say it's improper care, use it as proof that our garden is a nuisance. Sarah inhaled sharply. We need to stop them. Now. Without thinking, I threw on my jacket and stormed outside, phone in hand. Hey, I yelled, stepping into the glow of our floodlight. The two men froze. The taller one, still holding the spray can, snapped his head toward me. The other dropped his camera to his side, his hand hovering near his belt, where a holstered gun sat. My stomach turned cold, but I didn't stop moving. You have 5 seconds to explain why you just trespassed onto my property and vandalized my garden. Or I'm calling the real cops. The taller man straightened. This is an authorized enforcement check, conducted per HOA guidelines. You are in direct violation of. Shut up. I held up my phone, showing the paused security footage. I have you on tape cutting my gate lock and spraying poison on our garden. Try your HOA nonsense in front of a judge and see how far it gets. He hesitated, but then Barbara stepped out from the shadows. I strongly advise you to go back inside, Mr. Carter, she said, her voice dripping with false authority. This is an official HOA matter. If you interfere, further violations will be issued. Barbara, I suggest you call your lawyer. I took a slow step forward, lowering my voice so only she could hear. Because after tonight, you're going to need one. For the first time, she flinched. The taller man shoved the spray can into his pocket and turned toward her, waiting for instructions. Go, she snapped at them. Now, they left without another word. I waited until they were out of sight before turning back toward my house. Sarah stood on the porch, fists clenched, eyes blazing with anger. It's time, she said. We take this all the way. I nodded. No more warnings. No more playing nice. We go to war. By the next morning, the footage was everywhere. Sarah had uploaded it to the private neighborhood group. Within minutes, messages poured in. Are they serious? Poisoning plants. This is criminal trespassing. They should be arrested. Barbara has lost her mind. We need to vote her out now. By noon, a third of the community had signed a petition demanding an emergency HOA board meeting. But Barbara wasn't going down without a fight. The moment she realized she was losing control, she did what all corrupt leaders do. She doubled down. That afternoon, a new violation notice appeared on our door. Hostile actions against HOA security. Community bin under review. I stared at it, speechless. What does that even mean? Sarah read further. They're trying to ban us from HOA meetings. Tom, our neighbor, and longtime all arrived at our house 10 minutes later, his phone still in hand. They're targeting everyone who spoke out. Bob got a violation for excessive yard decorations, and Mrs. Patel got one for non-standard mailbox coloring. This is a purge. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Then we need to move fast. We call a lawyer. We call the press. And we force them to face the consequences. Sarah folded her arms. Time to put an end to Barbara's reign. The moment we sent the footage to the local news station, everything changed. Within 24 hours, the video of Barbara's security team trespassing and spraying chemicals on private property was all over social media. Even bigger outlets picked it up, with headlines like, HOA president caught on camera poisoning homeowner's garden. Private security or HOA thugs? Residents demand answers. Homeowners speak out. Corruption in Oakwood Heights. By the time the emergency HOA board meeting was set, the entire neighborhood was against her. The community hall was standing room *** only. *** neighbors packed into every available space, muttering angrily amongst themselves. Barbara sat at the head of the long table, flanked by her remaining supporters. But even they looked nervous. This meeting is to discuss community concerns, she announced, her voice tight. However, disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. Tom stood up. Disruptive? Barbara, we have video proof that your security officers broke into a resident's yard and destroyed property. How do you justify that? Barbara's jaw tightened. The security team was acting within their rights. HOA enforcement policies allow for. Bullshit, someone shouted from the back. A murmur of agreement spread through the crowd. Sarah stepped forward, holding a stack of legal documents. Barbara, you violated state trespassing laws and the HOA bylaws themselves. Your security team is unlicensed. And guess what? We're suing. A shocked hush fell over the room. That's right, I added, standing beside her. We've hired a lawyer. Every homeowner affected by your harassment is joining a class action lawsuit. And if you think your so-called security force will protect you, you should know that we already reported them to the state police. Their badges are fake. Their authority? Illegal. Barbara's face paled. This is outrageous. You can't. Oh, we can. Sarah slapped the documents onto the table. And if the HOA doesn't remove you, we'll be seeing you in court. One by one, neighbors stood up against Barbara. Bob exposed how she had been diverting HOA funds to her private account. Mrs. Patel revealed how Barbara had falsified violations to target specific families. Tom played voicemail recordings of threats she had sent to dissenting homeowners. By the time the board called for a vote, the result was unanimous. Barbara was officially removed as HOA president. When the decision was announced, cheers erupted. But the best part? 2 police officers arrived to escort Barbara out. She tried to argue, waving her arms wildly, but the officer simply said, "Ma'am, we have a warrant for your arrest. You're coming with us." The entire room watched as she was led away in handcuffs. And just like that, the reign of terror was over. The weeks that followed were transformative. The fraudulent violations were erased. The fake security team was disbanded and investigated. A new HOA board was elected, one that actually cared about the community. One evening, as I sat on the porch with Sarah, sipping coffee, she smiled at me. "We really did it," she said. I looked out at the neighborhood, kids riding bikes, neighbors chatting freely, a community free from fear. "Yeah," I said. "We did." And for the first time in a long time, home finally felt like home again.